What does this mean? Okay. David? Oh, there we go. Good afternoon, everyone. I will now call the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee of Thursday, June 12th to order. Mr. City Clerk, could I have a roll call, please?
I'm going to follow the will of the chair. Councillor Campbell. Present. Councillor Carlson.
I can't enter the meeting, but I'm present. Oh, present.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Present.
Councillor Parker is not present to date. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Acting Mayor Palladino.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Dodick. Present. And Mayor Higgin is not in attendance. Quorum is established. Do you want to know if I was here at any point? No. Apparently not. Councillor Crowson, sorry about that. I apologize. Councillor Crowson. I assume that means yes.
I was going to say. I am here. Thank you very much. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge offers respect to the Métis and all who have lived on this land and made Lethbridge their home. So from Deputy Mayor Dodick, I have the adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved that the June 12th, 2025 agenda of the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee meeting be adopted as presented. Deputy Mayor Dodick.
If there are no questions, no additions, I would then call the question. Oh, of course.
So we will call
I'll
questions.
call it again.
Questions been called. All in favor? Thank you. I have a motion from Councillor Campbell, the consent agenda. Be it resolved that the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee, 1, approve the minutes of the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee meeting held on May 8th, 2025, and authorize the Mayor and City Clerk to sign the same, and 2, receive for information the status of directed resolutions for June 12th, 2025. I believe, Mr. City Clerk, you had some comments to make on the consent agenda before we move forward with the adoption?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. There was a mistake made in the draft minutes that were circulated. There was a reference made to City Council being referred to, and we've now changed that to Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee. There's a motion to refer to that. So we've made that correction, and they're in the minutes as presented today.
So, Councillor Campbell?
If there are no other issues, then I will call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, and I believe we have Councillor Parker joining us online. All right, we'll carry on then. Presentations. We have a presentation, 5.1, from Aaron Crane, CEO of Tourism Lethbridge, and Carly Kleisinger, Director of Community Services, regarding Tourism Lethbridge Strategic Update 2025. Ms. Crane and Ms. Kleisinger.
Good afternoon, members of Economic SPC. Thank you for the opportunity to sit in the middle of the horseshoe. It's a strange angle. I don't like it. We wanted to provide an update as we do, as Tourism Lethbridge does. This time a little bit different. The reason I'm joining Ms. Crane today is just to give Economic SPC a quick update on some of the changes we've made in the last few months, and it'll become a little bit more clear as to why I'm sitting with Ms. Crane today. So the reason for this joint presentation today would be to reflect some of the changes that have been made. A few months ago, the city manager transferred the tourism portfolio over to community services, which was previously sitting with then Opportunity Lethbridge. So we have found some synergies. So there's been some synergies created since this transfer that we just wanted to draw your attention to. And some of them would be the direct connection to now our destinations that also are overseen in community services, which is the Galt Museum, Fort Whoop-Up, and the Nikayuko Japanese Garden. Also, we see a great connection now with the visitlethbridge.com arena, which also resides in community services. And then also the Lethbridge Sport Council, which, as you know, has an active role in some of the bids and the sport marketing that we do in the community. Some of the other fee-for-service groups that community services oversees that we also see some nice direct synergies and connections with. Some examples would be Allied Arts Council, Lethbridge BMX, Lethbridge Little League, just to name a few. So in the last few months, we've also added, which has been an absent member, we've added a community services representative to the Tourism Lethbridge Board. So to create a direct line between the division and the organization. That person is Ms. Norsworthy with the visitlethbridge.com arena, but she is the representative for the entire city of Lethbridge. The general manager of Rec and Culture, Mr. Harper, is now overseeing the lease and fee-for-service agreement to create the synergies and approach. He's also attending pertinent events and conferences and is in attendance today. And then in February of this year, I traveled to Edmonton with Tourism Lethbridge representatives to hear from ministers and key industry players from Travel Alberta about the future of tourism in Alberta. So we realize and recognize, as Ms. Crane has spoken about before, the importance of alignment with other levels of government, and particularly important as it can be linked to funding for DMOs. So although we won't have a PowerPoint presentation for you today, what I would draw your attention to out of all the documents would be the report to Council, Tourism Lethbridge priorities for 2025 and beyond. And this is kind of speaks to the alignment with all sectors while ensuring that the funder, City Council, is also having their priorities and expectations met. So Tourism Lethbridge is in that space where they're looking for the alignment with federal government, Travel Alberta, provincial government, and City of Lethbridge, and working in a space that works for all parties. Additionally, when you look at the documents that we've provided a case study about the Little Gem Winery, which we would say is a success story for Lethbridge and area, which provides a great example of opportunities for product development and unique tourism ideas that draw people to Lethbridge. So Ms. Crane, as the subject matter expert, is here to answer any questions, and then me on behalf of the City of Lethbridge. But really the starting point for this was just to let you know in the last few months that we've been busy working on creating different alignments, synergies within community services.
I'll just echo Ms. Kleisinger's comments, and that it has been a great relationship being built here. We've been thrilled with the support and the resources that are available to us through community services. And again, it is for us, as echoed by our board numerous times, we are thrilled to be in alignment with the city as well as the province and our national partners. Again, the alignment for destination growth is what is most important, and we work tirelessly on that with all of our partners and all of our stakeholders, definitely the city being one of them. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Before we move to questions from council, are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this item? I'll ask again, are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this item? And for a third time, are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to questions from council. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Crane, for the report, and Ms. Kleisinger for the presentation. So I've read through the report, and you talk, Ms. Crane, in regards to relationship building and collaboration and bringing in a whole host of what I perceive will be lots of great opportunities for people to experience the city, whether it's through sport or through a form of tourism and so forth. And it's heartwarming to see it. What I also do not see is any reference to hotels and how we're going to house people who come in to see all these great events. So can you explain how the relationship with Lethbridge Lodging Association and or all the hotels that we have in the city plays into this particular strategy?
Of course. The hotels are an extremely important partner. When we evaluate the visitor spending in our area, the accommodation sector is always one of those top performing areas, along with food and beverage, entertainment, transportation, the attractions, right? All of those things make up the visitor economy, as we call it. And we do support all of them throughout that journey. And while we don't maybe call out specifically what we're doing in each one of those areas, it really is about bringing them all together to have that voice. And, while we have had some challenges in the past, lately there has been a lot more conversations, coming to the table, and engagement around some of those things that are really beneficial to our community. We're, again, like you said, going out, putting in some bids for large-scale events.
Yeah.
And everyone is coming to those tables to have that conversation because we know we need to be aligned in order to win against other destinations, because we're constantly competing against destinations across Canada for a lot of this business. So we know that it takes all of us in order to win those bids, and we're starting to see that momentum, which is really exciting.
Do you see that tourism, Lethbridge, has a role in promoting the development of perhaps more upscale hotels to feel some of the need? If we're bringing people in from places across Canada, for example, we have a very small number of hotel rooms and an even smaller number of hotel rooms that would be up in the 150 range. We don't have anything above that. So are you working with industry and or the Hotel Association to promote the development of perhaps more upscale types of hotels that can accommodate the people that you're looking for to these events?
Yeah. What we know is that our partners at Travel Alberta, along with the Alberta Hotel Lodging Association, have done a lot of work to analyze what the needs are across the province. Mm-hmm. And what they've identified is that for Southern Alberta, that's everything south of Calgary, not including Calgary, there is a need for about 1,750 new hotel nights. And so from our point of view, one of our big deliverables is to ensure Lethbridge's market share. We want to make sure that we're part of those discussions around where those hotel nights need to be. So
And what type of
aligning-
hotel nights?
And exactly, and ensuring that we have that right mix of classification of economy class, mid-scale, upper class hotels. We have heard in our work going out to build the demand around business events that it is a barrier to people booking events at the convention center to not have a hotel attached. Right? We can overcome those goals as we do with many other things like transportation, and we believe that our community can definitely overcome those obstacles, but it's how we tell that story, and again, ensuring that we're looking to the future to solve it.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. I just, Ms. Kleisinger, you were saying you were attended an event up in Edmonton with Lethbridge Tourism, and you were talking about the future of tourism in Alberta. I wonder if I can get some highlights about that you found out, and what are some of the things we, Lethbridge Tourism should really be focusing on.
So one of the biggest takeaways for me in attendance of that event, and I found extremely beneficial, is to start to understand what it means when Tourism Lethbridge says things like product development, and how that came up time and time again from Travel Alberta and the minister. So the minister at the time spoke a lot about how many people Alberta is losing to British Columbia and how he wants to change that. So that he talked a lot about four-season destinations and how we need to have some of our different ski hills and places like that that are available for people. And he talked a lot about how Banff and Canmore and Jasper and others are maxed out. So he's looking to the rest of the province to come up with different products. Some of the examples that were shared were bike trails in Hinton or Métis Crossing up in Smoky Lake, Alberta. Some things that you can really start to see are ideas that aren't our typical, oh, you came to Alberta, you drove to the mountains, you went to Waterton. So what I took away from that is that product development, while we might not see ourselves in something right away, it's important to work towards something that might be a draw that is different than what people have experienced before. They're looking for different experiences, something that will allow people to travel here specifically for that. So a little sleepy Smoky Lake, Alberta is getting tons of tourists now. So I'm just quickly, I'll talk about how they say you go to the mountains in Banff and then people are leaving for Whitehorse to see the Northern Lights. But they said that there's Northern Lights in Fort McMurray. So how do you get people to, instead of coming to the mountains and directly leaving, stay? And I think we have an opportunity. We do have a highway that goes through Lethbridge, and just there are probably a couple of big ideas away from something really great that's happening. And so then that's what I would say is when we talk about product development, that's where I finally clued in. Probably took me longer than others about what that means for Southern Alberta.
Are you finding, and maybe Ms. Crane, you can weigh in on this, our customers, are we losing customers within Alberta or losing customers within, Canada? Or, I know maybe more Americans might want to come here as well. What's the general trend we're feeling?
So the trend that Ms. Kleisinger was talking about is that, annually we do see that British Columbia has done a really good job of activating tourism. And when we think about our, tourism destinations, they see a lot of that from Albertan travelers. And during COVID, what kept Alberta really going was the Albertans traveling around Alberta. And we want to get back to that point rather than, losing those visitor dollars to them as they cross the border. We do have an opportunity, I believe, with the ongoing, tariff and trade dynamics to capitalize on some more of that interprovincial travel as well as encouraging, those who are, looking at their wallets and thinking, how do I save a little this summer? Because there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. So as an emerging destination, right, we offer a fantastic value proposition to those folks. We have an amazing market just 2 hours north of us that we continually go into and spread that message, along with some of those, kind of tertiary markets that surround us. So the opportunities are there for us. It's how we capture them, and again, ensuring that we have that alignment in order to do so.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Councillor Carlson.
Pardon me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Kleisinger, Ms. Crane, for the update and information. Nice to see you. Question, Ms. Kleisinger, for you. You talked about realigning under community services out of Opportunity Lethbridge. And I thought one of the reasons for aligning with Opportunity Lethbridge was to get some of our grants, some of our event grants coordinated with Tourism Lethbridge, because they're the ones that do a lot of the events. Is that going to be an issue? You talked about all the synergies and moving into...
Of those two.
Excellent.
So, of those two.
Excellent.
So exactly for that reason, they do make sense, and a lot of the grants fit within recreation and culture anyway, and that's where they resided before. So it was they were welcomed back.
Okay, thank you. And I think you answered some of my question, unless there was anything further to Councillor Campbell's question about changes. You talked about pivoting during these crazy days with our neighbors to the south. And has there been a big pivot to say, okay, we need to shift our focus because we don't want to go there?
No, there has not been a shift in focus, right? We keep calm and carry on with the strategy that we have. And once again, that is in alignment with our provincial partners who continue to do that same thing. But we have seen some increases from our neighbors to the south, which is very exciting. Again, I believe that can be contributed to a number of factors. One being the tariffs, but also the other being, the cost benefit that they see in traveling to Canada, and the stability. One of the exciting things that we've also seen in our visitor spending is an increase from those across Canada and internationally as well. And the reason that's so exciting, and this is something we've talked about numerous times before, is that not all travelers are created equal. We know that there is an economic benefit to travelers within Alberta, but that benefit, multiplies the farther out that you go. So a traveler coming from Ontario is going to spend more in our community than someone from within Alberta. Someone coming from France is going to spend more than someone coming from Ontario and someone traveling from within Alberta. So this is how we grow that visitor spend, is by, welcoming more and ensuring that diversity as well. That helps support us and protect us for any future volatile situations.
Thank you for that. A question around the Path Forward document, and I appreciated you including that in here. And it talks about council's priorities. How were those set? Was that council saying, here is what we would like you to go, it's on page, I don't know what it is. Anyways, talks about council's priorities, maximizing grant opportunities, aligning partners, blah, blah, blah. Were those set by council directly, or was that sort of us just accepting Tourism Lethbridge's strategic plan, and so that was sort of our way of setting council's priorities? I don't recall council setting tourism priorities, so I was wondering where these came from.
Those priorities were things that I put down on paper to say that these are priorities that are fairly loose in nature, knowing that a lot of the work that is happening with council right now with all these other projects, that they will turn into something more concrete. So if council takes issue with any of them, they're very easily to be changed into something. It was more just about something that's what we're working on, pulled from advocacy, pulled from obviously always wanting to maximize grant dollars to go further. So there's nothing to them more than just it's something that was put on paper that knowing will change in the future.
Okay, and thank you for that. There was nothing alarming in there to me. It just, I did not remember council setting those. So I appreciate that. Can you explain what aligning with funding partners mean? And maybe describe who are your biggest funders? This might be for Ms. Crane. Who are your biggest funders? And are we saying we should align with other funders, or should we ensure that those other funders are aligned with us? Because these are our priorities, and I'm assuming council's the biggest funder?
Yes.
Yes,
Very
okay.
much so, yeah.
So
Thanks for that question. And I think that is, one of those outcomes that we wanted in creating this document, right, is to talk about, the alignment as a whole. And this is one of our challenges as Tourism Lethbridge. And I think maybe all fee-for-service go through this because we do have multiple funders. For us, the majority partner is the City of Lethbridge. We also receive funding from the province through multiple grants, often throughout the years, and even with our federal partners as well on some years. And then we do also open up for regional partnerships and other community partnerships in order to do projects, right? We often refer to this as a pay-to-play model. Right? So our job becomes ensuring that there is alignment to all of those priorities based on those funds. When we apply for grants or whatever it is, we have to list those outcomes. Those outcomes need to be in alignment with our core values and our core strategies. And these are the things that for our organization, I know our board really looks at closely, ensuring that, our strategic plan is being followed and that all of those items that we do are in alignment with that plan, which was done in alignment with the city policies and municipal development plan and the destination management plan as we included in here.
Okay, and thank you. Just maybe it was just the language in there. It's aligning with funding partners. I don't think it would be this council's priority to align with somebody who's giving $1. I'd rather they aligned with our priorities. So maybe just flip on that. I can hop out if there's other questions. Then I have, I think, one more that just something I heard about, and I mentioned it this morning to some of my colleagues. There's something called a rainbow registered community. I was out in Ottawa and a small town in Tollbrook, Newfoundland, I think it was, I'm trying to remember, had joined this rainbow registered community. And basically it got them all sorts of free marketing to the LGBTQ plus organizations, and they saw a huge boost in tourism from. So have you ever heard of that? I said I would ask when I got home.
No, we haven't, but I'm sure Dominika Wojcik, our Senior Director of Communications, is frantically writing that down. But, again, I think these are the exciting things from those communities in and around Canada that are doing some great stuff like that. I don't know if you all heard about Nanaimo offering the invitation to U.S. travelers to just come and check them out and come get a hug from a Canadian. And, it was very well received. They had one weekend where they were inundated with U.S. travelers. So, these grassroots things, that, can really make a big difference. And I appreciate the heads up.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Councillor Carlson, for asking the question about alignment with City Council goals, because that was actually one of the questions that I had. Ms. Crane, what can we be doing as a council to help you?
Thank you for that question. You know, we really appreciate the support that we have been given by you. And, you know, over the years, there's been a lot of kudos for the positive work that we do in the community. Again, we are the glass half full people. We are the rose-colored glasses people. This is what we do, is we go out and we champion Lethbridge out into the rest of the world. We do so knowing that, you know, there are some challenges and that, you know, we address those challenges, but we very much put the positive spin on everything. And I think this is where, you know, council can really, you know, help do that, is, you know, we all share that message. And one of our big goals is ensuring that we have those tourism champions locally and within our visitor economy. One of the events that we recently did was the Visitor Information Provider, we call them VIPs, frontline services event, and we're offering certificates for those who listen to the videos, take a short little quiz, and I think that'd be a great thing for all of you. Become visitor information provider champions here in our community. Encourage those within your circles to do so. Make sure that everybody's checking it out so we know how to speak positively about our community. I think that's really important. And, you know, one of those things that as a community, oftentimes we struggle with. We did receive back the resident sentiment survey, which was fantastic information showing that the residents really do love our community. They get that tourism brings them a good quality of life with, you know, things that those community services partners provide, the sports fields, the hockey rinks, the parks, the recreation that happens in our community. These are great things that, you know, many other communities struggle with. And there's a lot of great things that we can do in our community. And one of the other suggestions that we had was to get out and explore. When you're going to an event or an attraction, invite somebody along with you, right? These are, you know, simple things that we can do, but invite a friend and bring them along and, you know, let's make a big difference in the community.
Thank you very much. And I know I look forward to sharing my visitor information provider certificate later this afternoon because I got that in the email this morning during our session. Are there any other questions from council? Oh, Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to follow up on that question because let's be honest, Ms. Crane, sometimes you are way too kind. So you were asked, what do you need? Would another campground in Lethbridge be useful?
Any kind of housing, again, accommodation would be extremely useful, right? When we look at, you know, how we stack up against some of those partners, these are things that we will never say no to. We also heard back from a lot of our surveys that, you know, our stakeholders and even some of those residents are looking for other attraction opportunities, right? We often hear there's not enough to do, which again, we know that there's a lot of events going on, the attractions and our community services partners, right? This is what they do. They put those things on, and a big part of our job is helping to elevate them, right? And get them out to the rest of the world.
That was going to be my next part of the question. Do you need support for product development in the tourism field?
Yes.
And do we need a truck stop for...
Yes.
That's what Councillor Carlson.
I'm just going to keep saying yes.
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 And of course, council is not going to create those, but when we are looking at land banking, when we are looking at, you know, those sorts of things, This is something, some of the things that are essential for the tourism development that we have to keep in mind as council and as the Corporation of Lethbridge, right? So when we did, when you are asked those things, we need to make sure we know them, because these are, would be years in the making, but we do have to think about these from land use, from land development, et cetera.
Yeah,
Okay.
great point. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And don't always be too nice, Ms. Crane. Sometimes ask for things.
Thank you very much, Councillor Croson.
Areas and not always in other areas of supporting the groups that council funds. And so I think this, to me, was a little bit of a reset to say that we've acknowledged that we have to do a better job at City Hall to make sure that we're helping the fee-for-service groups that council funds be successful. So really for us, wanted you to know that we're paying attention and we're working really hard with a number of different parts across community services and the whole city of Lethbridge to make sure that council, the will of council and the ask of council gets back to the groups so that they can be successful, because it's unfair to ask people to do a good job if we haven't put the box around what that looks like.
And for us, again, it's that open communication, hearing from you about what it is that you need, ensuring that that's in alignment with our city partners, and however that conversation happens, that we're keeping that open conversation, that you know what it is that we are doing and that we are working for and what's the motivation behind it. And again, being able to keep that open communication.
Thank you both very much. Seeing no other questions from council, I have a motion from Councillor Carlson. Be it resolved that the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee recommends that council receive the Tourism Lethbridge annual update as information. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you. Unless my colleagues have anything further to add, just thank you both for the presentation, all the information. I'll call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. All right, so I have a request here to go into a closed session. Who can I have move this? Middleton Hope. Councillor Middleton Hope, be it resolved that we do now enter a closed meeting at 1:15 p.m. to discuss confidential matters with respect to item 7.1, Water Capital Improvement Program and Advocacy Update verbal, and 7.2, Amendment to the Water Services Bylaw 3999 verbal as per sections 26, harmful to intergovernmental relations, and 29, advice from officials of the Access to Information Act, ATIA. Councillor Middleton Hope.
You have to call the question.
Calling the question. I'll call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Thank you very much. We'll now move into a closed session.
As we're moving to close, is anybody else having really difficult time getting the agenda and everything to open on our website?
Did you switch back to
Madam Chair, do I just stay on this line or do I have to go?
All right, everyone, we'll call this meeting back to order. We are looking at agenda item 5.2. That is a presentation. Jason Drenth, General Manager, Water, Wastewater Utility, with regards to Bylaw 6494 Amendment to Bylaw 3999, the Water Service Bylaw. Mr. Drenth?
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thanks, Chair and members of Economic SBC. I'm here to present a proposed bylaw, 6494, which is an amendment to the existing water bylaw, 3999. What I'm really here to talk about today is just to give you a quick overview of what it is we do in the water side and the proposed changes. So next slide, please, and actually go 2 slides. So this is just a quick map. Explains obviously we service water for all customers within the City of Lethbridge boundaries, as well as a number of customers outside of the City of Lethbridge boundaries. Currently, about 20% of the water that we produce at the wastewater or the water treatment plant is supplied to the region, and that's really what we're here to talk about today. Next slide. So the bylaw changes presented today define the regional customer. Currently, the existing bylaw just defines commercial customers, does not delineate or identify between or highlight the difference between the regional customers and the Lethbridge customer. So the new bylaw proposes a change there to a regional customer as well as a commercial customer. And then we've added some a rate table in Schedule C for the new regional customer definition. Next slide there, please. So the impacts, as I mentioned, we're going to define what a regional customer is, which is anybody outside the legal definition of the City of Lethbridge boundary. Again, why we're doing it, because currently they're all defined as commercial customers, and we have no way of charging different rates for different customers, whether you're inside Lethbridge or outside Lethbridge. If we were to change a regional customer, we would by default be changing the local Lethbridge customers. So we're changing that. And the new rates, if the new proposed rates, if approved here today, really go back to why are we doing this is to cover our costs. Okay, and I'll talk about that on the next slide, please. So the proposed rates, you see there we've got new proposed rates on the left-hand side and the current rates. The current rates at anywhere above 50,000 cubic meters is at 54.4 cents per cubic meter. It costs the City of Lethbridge 83 cents a cubic meter to produce that water. So we're selling that water at a loss. So the new rates at the higher end, at minimum, cover our costs. So the new rates are going to go at the higher end at 83.4 cents up to $1.20.4 to cover our costs. Really, as it mentions there, it's to align with cost recovery, and that's the only reason we're doing that today. Next slide. This just gives you an overview of where we fit. I just pulled a general customer out of here, 75 millimeter customer, service customer, 5,000 cubic meters. So on the left, it shows the City of Lethbridge current rates and what the new proposed rates are, and then compares them to other utilities across the province. And by far, we are still the lowest provider of water for the region at the new proposed rates. And next slide, please. With that, the recommendation is that Economic SBC proposed to Council to provide first reading of Bylaw 6494 at next Council meeting on June 24th, and then second and third reading of Bylaw 6494 on July 15th, 2025. New rates would take effect September 1st of 2025. And with that, I open up to any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Drenth. Before we move on to questions from Council, I will ask if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on this item. Seeing none, we'll dive into questions here. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Drenth, for the presentation, always fulsome as usual. I wonder if we could just go back to the one of the slides there that indicates the costs and volumes. Yeah, that'll be it. Okay, so our cost to produce is 83 cents per cubic meter, is that correct?
Correct.
We are charging out to some customers 54 cents per cubic meter.
That is correct.
All right. So we want to move up to 83 cents per cubic meter, which is what our costs are. But you've also indicated that we could go as high as $1.20 per cubic meter. Can you explain perhaps how that is determined? Is it distance? Is it volume? How does that work?
This is a scaled rate, so it is by volume. So the first 750 cubic meters are charged at the $1.20.4. And then as the consumption increases, you get a discount based on volume. So from 751 cubic meters to 25,000 cubic meters, you're paying $1.07.9 on that segment of the volume.
Okay.
And then it goes to the next stage.
And our biggest customers would be the county and Points East, I would presume.
That is correct, yes.
And they've been notified of these rate increases.
They have been notified. As a matter of fact, I contacted every one of our regional customers last week, told them about this, invited them to council or to Economic SBC if they wanted to come here, gave them the information, and left it at that.
And we don't see anyone here.
And we don't see anybody here.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Croson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just following up on that from a process. So you've done this presentation today. You have brought it now to a Standing Policy Committee meeting where any member of the public, by process, we could have, as a corporation, just put this for first reading on a consent agenda without doing a presentation as you're doing today.
I would actually have to defer to legal. I believe that is correct, but I'll defer to Sherry.
So, but understanding the impact this is going to have, we are taking the time to put it to this so that people could come and talk if they wanted. And then it will go through our normal process. It will have first reading, and then there'll be 2 weeks between first reading and second and third if first reading is passed. So this is not a one and done today. People had the chance today, but they can also reach out. But we're doing the process appropriately and legally.
Yes, correct.
So I just want to add a little bit more to that too. I mean, even prior to having Mr. Drenth on this position, we started the conversation with regional customers over a year ago. It was probably 16 months ago. We informed them that we were going to do a cost of service study and we were going to review our rates. Not only this one here, but I know there was a question about scaling water rates. We want to, the next step on top of this is we want to have a third party that will help us to look at how others are doing rates for the region, because definitely our rates are not done probably to the extent that others are doing, and we want to make sure we are both fair, but at the same time efficient in terms of how much do we produce. On top of this rate is mostly for the cost to produce the water. We do have, 2 years ago, there were changes made into the bylaw to add a capital surcharge because they also need to contribute to the capital life cycle for the plants. And Mr. Matthew worked with the water team in order to create this reserve. No different than the residents of Lethbridge do that today. Regional customers also have an allocation for that and also for the operational to bring the water to city limits.
And we're always talking about how this is fair. They get the same service and treatment as our customers, no better, but definitely no worse either in the community. Would that be accurate?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Palladino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. There was, I think there still is, a line that goes from Lethbridge to Marshalls to Coaldale to McCain's. That's still there.
Yep, it is, yes. And they would be included in this.
Okay, Coaldale's in that, and there's 10,000 people now in Coaldale.
Yes.
How do you deal with that, and how do you bill that out?
So we have an agreement with the Lethbridge Regional Water Services Commission. Okay. That's who we deal with specifically, and that commission, who's Coaldale and the members of the county sit on that board. They regulate on behalf of the county and distribute once it leaves city of Lethbridge boundary. So we have a contract with them. They fall under this.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Carlson?
Carcelon. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation and information. The proposed regional rate increase, that's the schedule that's being proposed to be added. And maybe it's just my lack of understanding. I thought we just sold bulk water to the regional water group, and they in turn managed everything. So I'm curious why we have a 0 to 750. Like, who do we sell under 750 million?
There are a number of customers in the county, Marshalls, there's, I mean, there's customers that fall within this, the jail, the research center, that fall outside of the city of Lethbridge limits that are smaller. The county, the Lethbridge Regional Water Service Commission is just the largest, but we do have smaller ones.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That helps me a lot. Now, Schedule C in our current bylaw only contemplates one water rate for the commercial currently. When I look at that, there are still customers that are paying less than what it costs us to produce a cubic meter. Why aren't we increasing those? If a cost is a cost, why are we saying, oh, we've got to charge them the cost, but these other folks, no.
No, we're doing it in a staged approach. So we're looking at the whole, as Mr. Sanchez mentioned, we're looking at all water rates, water and wastewater. We're looking at the whole, how do we bill, what's correct, and we're taking a phased approach. So this is just the first step in looking at the big picture.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Just because I'm poor at math, but I just also, if I can see it in my head. What's this increase going to cost the regular person per month? Or just
so a number of the
general.
customers that I talked to last week that are smaller, on the smaller side, there's like a recovery center, there's even a couple residentials that are kind of, that run a business. You know, for the majority of them, it's going to be less than $10 a month.
$10 a month.
In like an increase of $10 a month or less.
And
for the majority, it'll be less than $1.
Oh, okay. So $10 sounds better, a month sounds better than we're raising it by that much. Well, in my own head.
Yeah, the larger customers will see a bigger input or a bigger increase, but again, the focus is all we're doing is trying to recover the cost of what it costs to produce that water.
Great, good, thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Campbell. Does anybody else have any questions? Councillor Middleton Hope.
Just a quick question. How long has this been going on for? We've been selling water for less than it costs us to produce. So how long have we been doing this?
That's actually a very good question. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know if Mr. Sanchez does.
So what I can say is that the rates that we have, these scheduled rates, the 54, they have been increased over the last, at least to the best of my knowledge, the last 15 years since I have been with the city on a regular basis. But it wasn't until the end of 2023 when we start looking into different approaches for the water utility and also for the wastewater utility that we decided to do this cost of service study. And then we realized that the cost that was being sold, maybe this cost 10 years ago was okay, but currently is not, and is creating this gap. And that's when, once we know, we need to do something in order to make sure that we fix the gap and we close that gap. And that when we started this in 2023, that's when we start talking to the regional customers, and specifically with the Lethbridge Regional Water Services Commission. In terms, this is happening, we just realized this, and we all now need to validate the numbers, which we did, and announce this change that is what's going to happen. They are aware since late last year. We validated this year, so they have been trying to adjust accordingly to this. But it's hard to say. We just, as part of the review that we did, we realized that this gap exists since early 2024.
Okay, and this isn't just us going after our customers or our partners. This is our costs have increased as well exponentially over the last number of years.
Correct. Energy costs have gone up, chemical costs have gone up, and capital investment has gone up as well. So no, this is really the cost to the result of increases of pricing over time, yes.
Good, thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions from my colleagues, I've got a motion here from Councillor Croson, Bylaw 6494, amendment to Bylaw 3999, the Water Service Bylaw. Be it resolved that the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee recommends that City Council provide first reading to Bylaw 6494, a bylaw to amend Bylaw 3999, the Water Service Bylaw, as provided in Attachment 1. Councillor Croson.
We had a fulsome discussion on this, so I'll just call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor?
Fulsome.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. All right, we are on to item 5.2, Daryl Matthews, Water CIP amendments. Mr. Matthews.
Madam Chair, I will start today's discussion. So I'll preface today's presentation with a brief recap of events from the past 2 years that have led us to today, as well as a few comments on the recommendations we've prepared for your consideration. As you'll likely recall, when we came before this committee 2 years ago, proposing to significantly increase our capital budget in order to address the pressing needs to expand our water and wastewater treatment capacity. You ultimately directed us to go away, investigate more options, and then report back. You also told us to look for provincial and federal money to help offset the costs of these much-needed projects. We've done that. And today, we are recommending approval of the amended capital budgets for 2 water treatment projects, E12 and E13, that are the first steps to increase our water treatment capacity to accommodate economic and population growth in Lethbridge and our surrounding regional communities. I'm sure you've all heard the saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Any good batch of lemonade includes some sour elements that are on their own would be hard to swallow. But it also includes sweeter elements that, when you mix them together, produce something that is quite palatable. As you've likely already noted in your materials, we're recommending that you approve an amended capital budget for these 2 projects that are 3 times the amounts originally approved in our current capital budget. That is a sobering reality, and Mr. Sanchez will outline the factors that have contributed to it. Mr. Matthews will outline how good financial stewardship, along with some success in securing grants and some valuable learning from others who've done similar projects, will enable us to fund these projects without increasing water utility rates for customers in Lethbridge. Since 2023, we've connected with several utilities that have helped us to define opportunities for innovation and others who helped us to avoid some pitfalls. These projects are critically important, and this will become evident in this presentation. So with that, I'll hand things over to Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Matthews.
Thank you. Next slide. So Economic SPC was presented in 2023 with a proposed CIP amendment to provide additional capacity for water treatment, wastewater treatment pipes, and pump stations. The proposed plan expansion at that time applied a phased approach based on the technical considerations of the units and processes involved. The water plant capacity could be increased on phase 1 to 180 million liters per day, with a phase 2 to increase capacity up to 250. The preliminary design of the second phase was also included to amend that CIP. At the time, the CIP proposal was not approved, and City Council directed administration to investigate more options. During this part of the investigation, we also have a change in the general manager of the utility, and we look into the whole process in terms of how the project was going to be delivered. And part of the work also included talking to a different level of government, such as the province and the federal government. On February 2027, Council was presented with two CAP projects, E26 and E27. Both CAP projects, especially E27 for the water treatment plant, was delivered with the support of an ACP grant that was received in order to complete the detailed design for the water treatment plant. This detailed design, it was the design for the projects that were presented in 2023 in order to be ready to go to tender. Next slide. The original project presented in 2023 included 10 CAP projects for a total of $123 million. After the direction from Council, administration received the ACP grant for the design, as mentioned before, and the detailed design was completed for phase one, which was specifically designed for E12 and E13. These two projects were subsequently tendered in October of 2024, with the tender closing at the beginning of 2025. The cost estimate for the two projects after the tender was $42.3 million for E12 and $24.9 million for E13. During this process for the tender and the design of these two projects, administration and the new GM of the water utility was able to look at all the details of the project, including the project delivery method and design in order to make sure that we could deliver the project at the most cost-efficient process and trying to reduce the cost. Most of the cost was contained during several factors that could be explained or attributed to many factors that has compounded into the increase of the cost. Inflation being one of these elements. We also, as mentioned before, we have a new GM who has reevaluated the project and what is required. They also involve throughout investigation to ensure that all the costs reflect our current reality. And lastly, the market is very tight right now. There are several infrastructure projects that are being completed across the province and across the country, and the prices are not as competitive as they used to be in the past. Next slide. So on this slide, we are trying to explain the process in terms of E12, which is water treatment plant process redundancy. The existing plant currently have two circular clarifiers for 75 million liters per day each. If one of these clarifiers is out of service or out of commission during the peak season, the city will be in a tough situation where we will need to declare a water emergency or a boiling order water, and this could affect not only the residents, but also the industry and regional customers. This project is intended to provide redundancy to the process, and we are adding one new high-rate clarifier for 90 MLD. This additional piece of equipment has been designed keeping in mind phase one and phase two of the plant expansion in order to be as effective as possible, but at the same time to allow us to have redundancy and to, in the future, retrofit one of the existing clarifiers with two new high-rate clarifiers. Next slide. This particular project was originally approved at $14.4 million. When the project was presented in 2023 for consideration and amendment, the price tag at that time was $34 million. After we received the ACP grant, the project was completely designed to the level of the detailed design and was tendered, and the new tender project came at a cost of $42 million. The project is the same project that was originally presented with no additional scope. The only change that we did was to keep in mind that this is one of the steps in order to complete phase one and phase two. Next slide. Moving into E13, which is the medium voltage upgrades, I have to mention too that for both projects, the equipment that we are life cycling or replacing as part of this project or creating the redundancy, the original equipment at the plant, it is the original equipment installed in 1982. So this is over 40 years in service. And the reason for these two projects and the importance is that it's a life cycle that is badly needed. On the electrical medium of voltage upgrades, same consideration is being done. We are installing low voltage transformers, cables. We're also replacing the trench that brings the power to the plant, and keeping in mind that the work is being done considering phase 1 and phase 2. So the work is in place in order to avoid any recost or any changes in the future that will increase the cost for phase 1. Next slide. Several factors apply for this project. We also have to mention that the projects were, in the case of E12, it was a project that was presented several cycles ago. It was not completed. As part of the review, when Council directed administration to look into different funding methods, we were able to realize that the project was in the books for quite a few years. We have since then made changes in order to ensure that we have measures in place to avoid this from happening. In the case of E13, it was a new project, but the scope and price has significantly changed. Same scope of work, but the price has, in this case, 4 times more. Main reason for this cost is electrical equipment has increased significantly over the last 5 years, and also some changes that we have done in terms of how we are delivering the project, not the scope, but the delivery method. Next slide. So a quick summary of both projects as presented, E12 and E13. We are seeking an amendment today to go from $21.5 million to $67.2 million. And I will pass it now to Daryl Matthews to explain all the financial aspects of the project.
Thank you, Mr. So based on the changes noted by Mr. Sanchez, our corporate finance team reviewed the new expenditure requirements for these two projects, I should say, in comparison to the existing total water funding available within existing rates. I know council members, if we go to the next slide, I know council members have seen this chart in the past, but as a reminder, what this chart is showing is that within our existing capital payment capacity, that's that red line at the top, or more simply, the amount of existing operating budget funding the water utility has for debt payments, we can fund all the existing loan requirements, which is that blue bar or number 1, as well as the previously approved CIP projects for the UV disinfection, reservoir upgrades, reservoir fill, line twinning, as well as the E12 water treatment plant's process redundancy and the E13 medium voltage upgrades. Next slide. As Mr. Sanchez noted, within the redesign of the project, as well as the inflationary cost increases and demand for contractors across the province, significantly increased the overall cost for these projects to $67.2 million from $21.5 million. To fund the overall redesign, the funding components highlighted on the slide is made up of these components: external borrowing of approximately $29.5 million, water capital, including capital consolidation of approximately $15.7 million, reserve funds of $10.4 million, water accumulated surplus of $2.3 million, and a potential grant of $9.3 million. You might be wondering how the city plans to manage the $45.7 million increase in cost for 2 major water projects without raising rates. Well, and I'll explain how now. First, the city will draw $25.1 million from an existing water-related funding sources, originally approved at $7.2 million. The $25.1 million includes the full balance of the water reserve created in 2024 to support water infrastructure and growth, which will reach $10.4 million by 2026. It also includes $14.7 million in water capital that has been gradually built up through responsible financial policies. Those are FS06 and our procedures of FS06 as well, such as applying year-end operating surpluses as down payments to reduce future borrowing needs. These allocations are disclosed in the unaudited financial report in each year in which they are made. The concept is very similar to a homeowner setting aside a portion of their extra earnings to save for a down payment on the purchase of a house or a large loan for an item. As the city manager noted at the beginning of the presentation, the ability to allocate an additional $17.9 million from the water reserve and from the water capital demonstrates good financial stewardship of funds over those years. Second, the city will increase the required borings to $29.5 million, currently approved at $11 million for these projects, which is still within the city's approved boring limits and the capital payment capacity as noted on the previous slide. Third, in December of 2024, Council endorsed administration to apply for a grant to offset a portion of the capital costs from the E12 water treatment process redundancy project. If this, that application's in, but if the city is not successful, we will need to revisit the E12 project with Council at a later date. Lastly, the previously approved capital improvement plan included $2.3 million from the water accumulated surplus and $940,000 from other capital funding. I do note, or do have to note, that utilizing substantially all of the existing water capital and reserve funding for these two projects will mean that any future water CIP projects will require increases in revenues from changes in rates and rate structures. Although, as we discussed earlier today, if Council approves the rate structure changes for the regional side, it would give further funding for future water capital projects. And with that, I'll turn it back to Mrs. Sanchez.
Next slide. So Project E12 and E13, they both mitigate the risk of clarifier failure and electrical component failures. If either one of these projects are not complete, it increases the risk to the overall water system and could result in water shortages that could negatively impact city residents, commercial customers, and regional customers. Next slide. This slide has a schedule on how these two projects are going to be completed, and also how phase 1 and phase 2 will be integrated in the future work for the plant. I have to talk here about some work that we have been completing over the last 12 months since Council directed us to look at different options. Administration over the past 8 months have been working with other stakeholders in the province in terms of project delivery method. And we are changing the way we do some projects based on best practices and learning opportunities, which includes project methodologies such as CMAR, is called Construction Management at Risk. That construction management at risk brings some elements to the table that have been used both in the private and the municipal sector in recent projects that could generate cost savings, efficiencies, and even expedite the construction methodology for these projects. E12 and E13, if approved, today on June 25th, that's where we are. The plan is to start construction later on the fall of this year and have these two projects completed by December of 2027. In the meantime, we're currently working on the detailed design of phase 1 for 180 MLD. Will not start until 2028 or until we have a funding source secure. I will pass it now to the city manager.
Thank you, Joel. So kind of bringing this to an end before questions, I just wanted to touch on the foundational benefit of water and wastewater. There's an oft-used saying that water is the lifeblood of our planet, and that couldn't be more true here. So in the end, while we're talking about, don't make me laugh, talking about water and wastewater plants, the real opportunity that this starts, becomes a catalyst for, is the bigger picture is the impact on GDP, jobs, and productivity. You see, whether it's across provincial government or federal government, those are absolutely foundational factors that are central to our economy and the future of this country. So the impact we hear about, Southern Alberta, the agri-food corridor, we're really in the heart of it, and the opportunity that presents with this and the impacts that it has on GDP, jobs, and productivity is significant. So in that case, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, and the benefit to the city, the region, and the province is significant. So the last piece that Mr. Sanchez already touched on, over time, you know, things improve. We have ChatGPT and all kinds of things today that didn't used to exist. So that goes in project management methodologies, that from waterfall to agile or construction management as at risk, where you find more efficient and effective ways to move projects forward. So those are really central to this, as well as finding savings for costs and time efficiencies. So with that, you know, we can turn it over to questions if none of my team has anything further that they would like to add.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brierley. I'll go to the public first. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I will open it up to questions from my colleagues. First up, we have Councillor Crowson.
First, and this is heartfelt, and I think I speak on behalf of council, that's the part that to me is standing out. Is there anything in your department? That's the part that to me is standing out. Is there anything in your department, Mr. Sanchez? And I realize utilities and tax separate, but is there anything that we could have looked to cancel to achieve this?
So part of the review that we did was considering all the projects that we have in place and all the details, even including this particular project. What can we do and what we really need to do today? What we're presenting today is the best scenario. There is no other project that we could cancel or delay. What we are moving, in some cases, when we came in 2023, was to do the full phase one. We're still delaying those ones to phase one. So we are only doing the ones that are critical for the plant operations. There is nothing else we could have done different. We did have a long work with the whole team, not only within the city, but also with our consultant company, the engineering company, and the construction company that is part of this project. And we had at least 10 weeks of closed sessions where we were trying to find every opportunity. What we're presenting today is the bare minimum that we should do in order to assure that the plant will still continue to operate as planned.
Part of when I read this, part of the reason we're in such a boat today is delays in this project. It's been up before past city councils on many occasions and was delayed and delayed. And part of it is that costs have gone up, we just know that, and they're not going to go down at this point. But also the fact that we may not have had the best understanding of the true cost at that time. Do you promise me that if we say yes to this, this is the true cost right now, and that we truly understand the estimate that you brought before us?
So that's a tough question, and I'm going to be responding with 100% honesty on this one. What we have today is the best case scenario with what we know and what we're trying to do. For this particular project, we have gone through several elements, and we have some measures to protect us in case things are not as directly planned. In order to talk about more of those, I really will need to go in close, and the main reason is those measures can later be used in a different way. So I can tell you today that what we have and what we are presenting for E12 and E13 are considering all the elements that we have. Regarding phase one, what we know today is a high-level estimate. The number that was presented in 2023 definitely is not the same that it will be presented later in 2026. But for these two projects, we feel confident that what we are presenting today will allow us to deliver E12 and E13 at the budget that we're presenting to City Council.
Okay. I guess that's better than nothing, but okay. And Mr. Matthews, financially, this is worst case scenario. I mean, we've heard that we're still having an estimate, worst case scenario, but your department, all departments continue to look for money, continue to look for more options. Like there is always the possibility that this is not the worst case scenario, long going.
Yes, I would agree with you, Councillor Crowson, that, this is what we know today, and we've done, I think administration has done a really good job in going through and taking a look at where we're at today. There's always something of unknown that could come along. Nobody, foresaw a pandemic or any of those other kind of things in a few years back. But yes, from a risk management standpoint, we've taken a look at this, and we believe these numbers are fairly solid at this stage.
And from what we understand, the residents still need water to drink.
Yes, need water to drink, and we need water for all of our commercial activities and all those kind of things in the community. And as the city manager mentioned, it's one of those major critical factors and service requirements that we have to provide citizens.
And there comes a time when you can't keep kicking the can down the road. You actually have to do it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Campbell.
I think it's probably been covered, but I think it never hurts to emphasize that this is something we wish we had. This is something we have to have. There's no question about that. You've done your due diligence. There is no plan B. This is the way it has to go if we want to continue on. I guess that's a comment, but you can respond.
Correct. 100%. These two projects, as we explained before, probably should have been done a few years ago, and we are at a point that we really need to move forward, and that's why we're putting this proposal today, because the equipment that we have at the plant is more than 40 years old, and we want to ensure that we have reliable equipment.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question through you to probably Mr. Matthews. To start, the length of borrowing, length of term on the borrowing is?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Carlson. So the both borrowings, and typically for, it's, well, first of all, they're 20 years, which is the maximum amount under our policies without asking for special permission from council. So they're both 20-year loans.
Okay, thank you. Because I was just wondering, when I first saw the slide of the changes to the funding sources, I thought, okay, the reason the rates aren't going up is because we had borrowings in place for the first round, but then I thought I heard that it's actually an 18 million more borrowing, but because we're amortizing that over 20 years, that's why we don't feel the need to increase rates at this time?
Yeah, that's some of the components inside of there. So as we go along, we, on that chart, and maybe if we go back a couple slides there, it might be easier if we had the chart a couple more, the one that has the blue and one more back. There we go. So on this graphic here, it shows all the different projects that are in it. And the very number one, the very bottom down there, which is the blue, is our existing loan payments. And you can see some of those loans are, as the years go by, are coming off. So what that means then is because the additional costs are coming in, we had capacity, or we call it white space, i.e. below the red line, we had some extra capacity in our budgeting dollars to do this work. And so therefore, with everything else, all the other funding sources, we were able to increase the borrowing, but still be within the budgeted amounts within our operating budget.
All right, seeing no other questions from my colleagues, I have a motion here from Councillor Parker. Water Capital Improvement Program amendments. Be it resolved that the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee recommend that City Council 5.3.1 Water Capital Improvement Program amendments for E12 and E13. 1, amend the 2022 to 2031 Capital Improvement Program CIP budget for the water utility capital projects as identified below. Project E12, Water Treatment Plant Process Redundancy Project, amend the capital project for the expenditures from funding from $14 million to $42.3 million as provided in Attachment 1. Project E13, Water Treatment Plant Medium Voltage Upgrades Project, amend the capital project for expenditures and funding from $7.5 million to $24.9 million as provided in Attachment 3. 5.3.2, Bylaw 6498, Water Treatment Plant Process Redundancy Project. 2, give first reading to the borrowing Bylaw 6498, Water Treatment Plant Process Redundancy Project on June 24th, 2025. 5.3.3, Bylaw 6499, Water Treatment Plant Medium Voltage Upgrades Project. 3, give first reading to borrowing Bylaw 6499, Water Treatment Plant Medium Voltage Upgrades Project on June 24th, 2025. Councillor Parker.
First of all, obviously the questions have been asked, but is there any other further questions from members of the Economic SPC at this time?
Oh, we see Councillor Dodick. Oh, Councillor Dodick is in for debate.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Sanchez, Mr. Matthews, and of course our city manager and all the staff for, as well as Mr. Drenth for answering all our questions that we've had. This is a crucial piece of infrastructure, and I think, as stated by asked by Councillor Campbell, this isn't a want. This is a crucial need, a crucial piece of infrastructure for not only our community but also for the region. And as most people know, Lethbridge is not an island on its own. We play a major role in supplying water to the surrounding communities, water and wastewater. And so this is a huge cost. It's quite an eye-opener, but I think that Mr. Sanchez explained it completely and the reasoning behind the increases. And I want to thank Mr. Sanchez for doing that. I would just ask this time that members of SBC would support this in taking this to council for approval.
Deputy Mayor Dodick?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I will support it. It's already been said that this is a need, not a want. This is happens sometimes. It's a sticker shock. Back when this was approved in the 2022-2031 CIP, E12 and E13, I'm sure if the question had been asked at that time of administration whether they anticipated that have been the best price or the a reasonable price at that time, but it's always subject to what sort of responses you're going to get to tenders and all sorts of other things coming into play, such as COVID and various other factors. So when we ask administration and say, look, this is your best estimate based on the information that you have, and you come up with a number. I'm sure at that time, if you asked administration, could you promise that this is not going to get any higher? You can't answer a question like that because there are all sorts of factors that come into play that are changeable. I mean, people experience that all the time. They go and build a house, and I use myself as an example. I think it's going to cost X, and the actual cost is Y, and there are a number of factors that go into that. But then we're looking at something that previous council had indicated was important projects. Obviously, providing continued 24/7 clean water supply to our community. There's very few things that are more important to that. And since we have an old clarifier that's been around since I believe it was 1982, they said, and we don't have a redundancy in it, we need a clarifier redundancy. The same thing applies to ensure that the power is there to ensure that the water is actually pumped to where it needs to go, and that's the electrical component of it. So, yes, it's a need, and yes, it's a sticker shock, but it happens, and luckily, and maybe not luckily, because of good management and because administration and the city treasurer is cognizant of the fact that these sorts of things happen. And so you get things like accumulated surplus and how we had described water capital, and we have a capacity to borrow to the point that we can do these projects which are necessary within the financial capacity that we have right now. So yes, it's sticker shock. Yes, it's a surprise. Yet, when we were told this a while back, we as council were cognizant of it, told administration to go back to see what they can do as best they can do, and they came back and said, this is it, this is the best we can do. And as Councillor Campbell wanted to know, is there a plan B? There really isn't a plan B. Again, 24/7 water supply to our community is a need, and we need to have the redundancy that this provides to us to ensure that that need is fulfilled. I will be supporting this. I said that earlier. I said it again. Unlike administration, I repeat things.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, and thank you to the presenters for providing us with some, albeit challenging insights, but insights nonetheless. What I think one of the things that we heard today from Mr. Matthews in particular, and please, Mr. Matthews, if I'm incorrect, you can certainly correct me. The strategies that we're utilizing to fund these two new projects will not increase our water rates through 2026. Is that correct? that we are able to fund this through existing capital.
That is correct.
All right. I think it's the horse has already left the barn in terms of our regional partners who perhaps need to be encouraged to and will be encouraged to pay their fair share of the freight. This is something that none of our ratepayers certainly want in terms of increases in rates, nor do they want these costs, these exorbitant costs, unfortunately, of this very necessary project passed on to us, but it is a necessary evil, and it is something that we're going to, after today, pass this forward to council to approve, presumably. This will be a project that will be long in standing and provide us with the necessary water and services that we require in the long run. Is that correct?
That is also correct.
Good. Thank you very much.
Seeing no other debate, back to you, Councillor Parker, to close, please. Oh, you're on mute, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Councillor Milton Hope, for that hybrid question/debate. I think that was quite neat, but I appreciate the comments from my colleagues, and I appreciate the work of our administration. I call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. On to submissions. So we have 6.1, Mitch Stevenson, Financial Planning and Budget Manager, Asset Management Strategy. Is Mr. Stevenson, is there anything you'd like to highlight out of this for us?
Nothing specific within the document I'd like to highlight for Economic SPC today. I think the only thing I would mention is this is the second part of a government's document that we're hoping to get approved or brought forward to council for approval. The first part was our asset management policy that was brought forward earlier in the year, and the strategy is in front of you today.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who have any questions with regards to this? All right, seeing none, we'll open this up to council. Councillor Crowson.
Mr. Stevenson, I can't help but feel if you had this work done, we wouldn't have had the earlier discussion because we would have known and had paid for that at the appropriate time. So thank you so much for this work. One of the things, one process question coming out of it, you have that the police are going to be doing an asset management plan. Can we direct the police to do an asset management plan? Or how does that actually work with the commission and everything? Or are they just, they know it's important and they're doing it? I was just wondering how that works.
That's a good question. It's not something we've considered just yet. Our priority has been focused on a number of other departments. I have had conversations with LPS. They know the importance of asset management, and they've done some other pieces specifically in regards to IT that council have seen in the past. But I don't know if
so it's maybe
Mr. Matthews
maybe
might
not
have
a direction, but they just recognize the importance and want to do it as well.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Crowson. So we can't direct, obviously, anything with LPC or LPS in that regard. However, what we have seen, we've had really good relationships with both LPC and LPS on a number of different fronts, and basically, Mr. Stevenson has mentioned they've had talks. So I would imagine that I know from their administration side that they are working on pieces of this, and I think they'd be very supportive of it as well.
Okay.
But here again, that's their decision ultimately.
Okay. One of the things about asset management is sometimes we get assets we don't want. So I was thinking Parks Department, they've done their plan, et cetera. But sometimes we develop a new neighborhood and all of a sudden, hey, you get another park. So how does just acquiring assets tie into these long-term plans? Because I'm curious about how does this plan fit into other plans when some of our departments just sort of acquire assets?
Yeah, it's a good question. Part of asset management planning is certainly that growth aspect that you're talking about. But the first priority is maintaining what we own. So I'm looking at existing assets. We have completed the parks asset management plan. There are some updates to do because it has been completed for quite some time. We wanted to get both these two government documents completed before we brought that forward. There is some growth components, like you're mentioning, that are part of that plan. But from an asset management perspective, the priority and what they're focusing on typically is the existing assets. And obviously, because of growth, they'll come into our inventory, and we have to plan for that accordingly. But when we're looking at growth, we're looking at things like population growth and factoring in those types of assumptions. And when we build communities, parks, of course, come with that. So it's certainly part of the plan, but the focus of what you'll see coming forward here in the next couple of months will be maintaining what we own.
Yeah, and I bring that up mostly because it's how to connect all of our plans together. And sometimes we almost have cart driving the horse because, we want to do better asset management, but then because of another part of the city that, development or whatever, and it's doing this job too, all of a sudden it impacts this one. So how do they tie together, Mr. Matthews, so make sure that, we can do the best planning we can, but if it's all siloed, sometimes we're dealing with issues that we probably don't want to be dealing with.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Crowson, I should say, in that regard. So a couple of ways that actually occurs. One, currently inside our CIP side, and some of the things I mentioned earlier on it, as we're looking at projects coming through, we would look at that. So some of the growth aspect and new pieces, if there are projects, they would come through that way. There is also growth that happens, as you're referring to, from other development pieces outside of there. So that also goes into that, the OBM that we had earlier this week and that council endorsed, the long-term financial sustainability framework would look at those kind of pieces to make sure that they're tied between the plans. That's not to say we don't do that today. I mean, obviously between the discussions, between what we know from Mr. Sanchez's group in planning and so forth that are coming through, from what Mr. Stevenson's team is doing in asset management, we are looking at growth and so forth within the city, and we're trying to accommodate that into the overall budgetary and capital or component side. That being said, there's always the unknown components. Things move fast, so we, in between periods, brand new development that we didn't know about and so forth comes along. Then we, at that point in time, into an area that has some planning, but it's still a brand new asset that'll come over to us where they advance it faster. Schools would be an example of that, or something. Those are things that we have to pivot very quickly on to make sure that within our next operating budgets and so forth, we're doing it. So there's a little bit of finesse of doing this work, but that is some of the models we're looking at of how can we even do it better, and then some of the things we'll look at in the long-term sustainability framework.
And I appreciate hearing how admin plans to do it, but it's also something future councils have to think about, is how does the development, residential, industrial, et cetera, tie in with these larger plans, and are we just creating problems for ourselves, unintended or not? We have to make sure we consider those things. And I know one of my favorite assets is trees, and this plan strategy feels like a tree. Best time would have been 50 years ago. Second best time is now. So thank you very, very much for this. It is wonderful to see how quickly you have progressed on this, and love what I'm seeing so far. So thank you.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Stevenson. I'm just wondering if you can characterize our asset management strategy, if this model is characterized by an equitable balance between divesting ourselves of assets versus acquiring assets. Clearly, acquiring assets costs us money. It may also acquire revenue streams at the same time, but divesting ourselves of some of our assets also generates revenues through sales and taxes. So I wonder if you could comment on that.
Sure. A good example of what you'll see come forward in the future is the Facility Services Asset Management Plan. As I mentioned, they're focusing on our existing asset or existing portfolio for our facilities in that example of what we own today. One of the things that our asset management plans will not assess, in particular in regards to the Facility Services Asset Management Plan, is a particular facility's functionality. So what it will assess is its condition. So we'll go through and we'll take a look at the condition of a particular facility. And if, of course, it's poor or very poor, we may consider divesting for that for various reasons. You could divest of a particular facility because it's not functional. So my point being is we wouldn't look at the functionality side, but when we're looking at these asset management plans, and an example I provided for facility services, if you will see very clearly the condition of various facilities and whether they're from a 1 through 5 scale, 1 being good or very good and 5 being very poor, we would never say to divest, but what we would say is you're coming to a point of some sort of scheduled replacement, or you may need to consider doing something differently there. So that's something you'll see here in the future, and that's what the plans will hope to provide information to council to use as a tool to make those investment or divestiture decisions.
As a part of your examination of a facility or a building for that matter, remediation costs or ongoing maintenance costs might be considered in terms of whether we retain an asset or acquire an asset?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions from my colleagues, I have a motion from Acting Mayor Palladino, Asset Management Strategy. Be it resolved that the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council adopt the Asset Management Strategy as provided in Attachment 1 in principle as a guiding document. Acting Mayor Palladino.
I'll call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor?
We've had a good discussion.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. And we have item 6.2, Kim Gallucci, Acting CEO, Lethbridge and District Exhibition, with regards to LDE monthly financial reporting. Mr. Gallucci, is there anything you'd like to update us on or anything you'd like to highlight in this?
I think self.
Okay, are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this? Seeing none, Councillor Dodek. Acting Mayor, or what's his name sitting over there, Dodek? Deputy Mayor Dodek.
My question is to the city treasurer. When I look at the statement of operations, total revenue, it says events and operational. What does operational mean?
Whoop, there we go. So on the statement of operations there, so obviously events revenues would be things like the Ag Expo and so forth and that, and operational would be like your other revenues that you're getting in from everything from probably sponsorships, I'm presuming, to actually any sort of the smaller rental and other ancillary revenues that they would make, and probably even their commission values, or maybe it's not even the right word of it, on commission. Mr. Gallucci can correct me on my terminology there, but when it comes to like basically their portion of concessions and so forth and that kind of side.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is the city approved certain operating monies to them. So the operating monies that are given or were approved to the Lethbridge and District Exhibition, do they show up in the statement of operations? And if so, where?
Yes, they would also show up. Let's make sure I got it here. Yeah, they would show up inside of that events and operational funding.
Okay, so that's where it becomes a little confusing for me, because if we break out the events and operational, it in my view, it doesn't actually show the amount of money that is costing the taxpayers to fund the ongoing operations, because the operational also includes the money that has been approved for operations.
And I believe that's, yeah, no, I totally see what you're saying there on this. So I'm just going to confirm with Mr. Gallucci here. The grants line in there is only the provincial grants line, if I remember, my recollection is correct on that line, based on the 513 amount in the annual budget. So Councillor Dodick is referring to is creating another line inside of here saying basically City of Lethbridge operating support and breaking that out from the events and operational is what I'm believing
Yes,
is what
because-
the ask is.
And the reason I'm saying that is that saying events and operational, and if operational includes the money given by the city through the previously approved budget requests, we don't actually know how much the events themselves as a standalone are providing to the exhibition versus, not just versus, but in addition to what the city is providing. So a second line would be.
And I have to take a look at this to make sure that's the case because it could also be on this one here, and I should know this right off the top of my head, but it could also be that on the net income on the bottom line there, we fund that piece and it doesn't show inside of there, but I'll confirm that with Mr. Galucci and his team after this here, but I understand where you're coming from. Showing how much money is coming through on the operational side to do it.
How much is coming in from events and how much is
coming in from
city?
other?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dodick.
And I will actually confirm on that here. In the background, my team actually just must be listening, and they said that no, the city money is adjusted out except for life cycles. Only life cycles up there, so it doesn't show it's at the bottom line. But what we'll do is we'll ask the LDE if they can actually put another line below to show how much we've transferred of that.
Yeah,
in the bottom.
because I really like to see how much the events are bringing in.
Yep.
As opposed to just a total.
I understand what
Which
you're
includes
saying.
city money, yes.
Yep.
thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Dodick, because that was actually my question as well. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. So this question, I guess, is to Mr. Matthews. Does it appears from looking at the balance sheet that we continue to reduce costs while we continue to increase revenues? Is that a fair assessment?
You know, I'll get Mr. Galucci to answer that, but my opinion is yes, that is true. But I'll get Mr. Galucci to give you a bit more of a context there.
Yes, Councillor Middleton Hope, we are increasing revenues, and over our expenses are still high. We're still working on reducing them. We've taken a number of initiatives to reduce them even more, and they're in smaller increments. Some of those won't be realized till the fall, just because of timing. For example, we've changed our accounting system to be a more robust accounting system that really helps us plan and see day to day how things are operating with our directors. Along with this better accounting system, it actually costs less. However, we're maintaining the current accounting system just for audit purposes and a few other things that we need to check. So we'll realize those gains in the fall, but we are heading in that direction. Our costs continue to be higher than our revenues, but our revenues are growing and through events and a number of other ones. Just to speak to the grant part, I think it might be even advantageous for clarity that since we received that one-time grant from the province, we're also going to be bringing money in for specific uses from that province. So what we should probably do, what we'll do is we'll show the provincial grant and then the city portion and then the separate, and that'll be for this year because it's only a one-time grant from the province.
In regards to, we've asked you through this body to look for opportunities for sponsorship. And you've, in my view, you have done a yeoman's work in regards to bringing in sponsorship on behalf of the Lethbridge and District Exhibition and other locations across the city. Are we looking at becoming a partial landlord at some point? Are we looking at leasing out some of the space of the exhibition?
Currently, if you're in reference, we do lease out Safety City as an office currently. But we don't lease out the pavilions. Right now, they're classified as storage only.
I'm thinking more of the main pavilion, the new pavilion. Are there options there that we may or may not be exploring?
With the you're talking about the main, like the south, north, and main.
Our new one, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, we are looking at. Oh, you mean renting like the Agri Food Hub at some point out?
Well,
Sorry,
office space, allowing businesses to move in there on a permanent basis.
We haven't just yet. We do have some space. We have some areas to do that.
Is it something we're exploring?
It is something worth exploring because there is future, and it is something we'll look at shortly. Right now, our focus has really been on events, attracting events, securing events for 25, 26, 27. We spent a lot of time on that. Sponsorship, we spent a lot of time on. We have a lot of room in that sponsorship space as well. We do have an area that we're hoping to work with the First Nations on as well, for a space for them. So we are looking at a number of different options, but our focus has been on the other areas primarily for just now, and we are expanding into other areas.
So there is an opportunity there for us to look at sharing space where we will rent that out to a third party. I'm not talking about providing space. I'm talking about renting space.
Yeah. We haven't looked at this very closely. There is some space. Again, we'd have to develop it. It's in behind the walls, and there would be some, but we'll have to create it and build it out. Just on the main floor, there's some, but yeah,
it's something that you're looking at exploring.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell.
In behind.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Galucci, and looking forward to Whoop Up Days, by the way. You talked about the pavilions and that they're being used for storage. Can you just kind of go into a little more detail about the kind of storage you have? Is that strictly pavilion or agricultural stuff, or what kind of storage is that? Can you?
For right now, it is just storage that we have. We have stored a few other things over the winter for people at a rental cost. The pavilions have been really a bit of a challenge. At first, we thought we could rent them, which we tried to do, but then we found that the risk is pretty high. We could lose the HVAC system or the air conditioning just because it's in poor shape, which would cost us even more if we were locked into some type of lease or rental. So what we've done is really shut them down as much as we can to reduce the cost, but we still need to maintain the heat, the electricity for fire, theft, that type of thing. So there is water and let's say the sprinkler lines, but not water operationally. There is electricity that works and the lights work and everything else. So what we tend to do is use it for storage that helps community, storage for rentals, and that kind of thing. It would be like, for example, the Dragon boats are now, they're using our one of the halls for storage of the Dragon boats, so it's very close to the lake, so they can go back and forth.
Do they pay for that, or that's just you just offering it up?
No, the rent they had before was not much. In fact, I would argue next to nothing. So we have not really charged them. Now, if it's a longer term than the race, then we would look at that differently.
And is Heritage Hall totally shut down right now too?
Heritage Hall is totally shut down and boarded up. Again, it's a building that does not have air conditioning. It doesn't have insulation. Its windows were weak and almost could come out. So we boarded the windows, removed the awning, boarded the doors, and kind of, again, it would be a place you could store, but it's not easy to get in and out of, so we don't really use it for storage either. It's not very efficient for any type of rental.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions from my colleagues, I have a motion from Councillor Crowson, Lethbridge and District Exhibition Monthly Financial Reporting. Be it resolved that the Economic Finance Standing Policy Committee receive for information the Lethbridge and District Exhibition LDE Monthly Financial Operating Report for the month ended March 2025. Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Mr. Galucci, for what should be a quarterly report. I'll call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. And those are my old ones. Item 7.1, I have moved by Deputy Mayor Dodek, Amendment to the Water Services Bylaw, 399, verbal. Further be it resolved that the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee direct that the closed meeting documents, discussions, and report with respect to the amendments to the Water Services Bylaw 3999 verbal remain confidential pursuant to sections 26, harmful to intergovernmental relations, 29, advice from officials of the Access of Information Act, ATIA. Deputy Mayor Dodick.
The resolution speaks for itself. I call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. And we have item 7.2, motion from Councillor Middleton Hope, Water Capital Improvement Program and Advocacy Update, verbal. Further be it resolved that the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee direct that the closed meeting documents, discussions, and report with respect to the Water Capital Improvement Program and Advocacy Update remain confidential pursuant to sections 26, harmful to intergovernmental relations, and 29, advice from officials of the Access to Information Act, ATIA. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ibid, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Rako Dodick's comments, and I call a question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. And that is our meeting. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
It does. It actually, well, no, I just said
Take care,
Ibid.
everyone.
Well, that was a long day. It was interesting, though.
John, your mic's on still. There you go.